Welcome to video clip 4 in week 6 of development economics. So in the last video clip, we were talking about alternatives to the trade-off or trickle-down view, and some of the jargon used to describe these alternative concepts, and they were broad-based growth or shared growth or pro-poor growth. More recently, the term inclusive growth has gained a lot of traction, and all of these alternatives basically refer to a pattern of economic growth that is going to reduce poverty and income inequality. There are differences between these different terms, slight differences in the jargon, and it can become a very philosophical debate, which you don't have to worry too much about, but just realize that the latest term that is used in development economics is inclusive growth. You can read through these slides on pro-poor growth as a concept, but the term is relatively self-explanatory. You can also just read up here about some of the controversy surrounding these concepts, which different authors have come up with. And Claassen makes a distinction, a very useful one, in terms of whether you are looking at outcomes of economic growth, which would be incomes, poverty, inequality, and access, versus the process itself of economic growth, looking at social opportunities and participation, whether it's in the labor market or in entrepreneurial markets, etc. Many others will come up with their own definition of inclusive growth. Here we have one by Friedrich Fourie. And when it comes to the measurement of inclusive growth, because there are so many voices out there in terms of how it is defined and what it encapsulates, you can imagine that it's very fuzzy to measure, and therefore difficult to analyze in terms of policy analysis. Because one would need a before scenario where you measure some kind of metric, and then an after scenario measuring the same metric, and then comparing to see how inclusive growth has changed over time. But if we cannot agree on a definition of inclusive growth, if we cannot agree on how to measure it, then this becomes a bit difficult in the policy space. And some people have come up with different proxies of inclusive growth. And so we dealt with measurement issues last week, looking at poverty and inequality. But just to highlight the case that some measures are more traditional than others, and some are more well established. Some of these measures, they are in accordance with your welfare axioms, and others are not. Some authors feel that they want to create their own measures or proxies to define inclusive growth or inclusive development. And you will see a lot of this in development economics, where authors are trying to describe a degree or the level of development in a country. So it differs. There isn't one particular standard that everyone subscribes to. It depends on your views, your normative views on poverty and inequality, and how you feel about these different measurements and proxies. Right, and that's it for this week. You've got a reading assignment. Your practical has been posted. You probably have a lot of other assignments too. Next week you have a mini break. Use it wisely. Remember to rest. And I'll see you in the chat room on Thursday. Goodbye.